everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you all for coming and sitting down and discussing our new project entitled Walking Alive. So I was curious, what was the idea behind doing this particular project? Anna, Josh, somebody jump in on that?
Yeah, I think the first album, we had 4 original songs, and then we came up with Wonderful after that. And so those were all original songs, all written by Anna. And then, Mary had written a song, and then you had started writing some songs. And I think Anna said she had like another 30 songs in the bank of like songs that she had, but some that were kind of coming to the forefront. So there was, these 4, 5, 6 songs from 3 different people that were kind of coming to the forefront, and we wanted to make sure, like, hey, people are writing, and we want to showcase that and using their gifts and talents for God. And so let's get that out in front of some people.
So what do you guys think? I mean, we're talking about releasing music, but for you guys, what has been the value of musical worship in your experience?
Great question. To me, musical worship is, it's part of our Christian expression. It's part of what we do to honor God, to let him know how much we love him, appreciate him, and want to worship and honor and adore him. Musical worship is part of that. Our whole life needs to be an expression of worship. Sure. But music certainly has a place, especially Christian worship music has a place in being able to honor God from our heart, from our lives, with our voices. And the scripture says that when we worship him, when we praise him, that he inhabits those praises, that he comes and to be a part of our lives and to work in our lives, especially during that time. Plus, it can be very encouraging to us as we worship God. It can change the way we think. It can change the way we feel about things as we worship. So I think it's a huge part of our Christian experience.
For sure. And I remember, thinking about releasing our own music was kind of like, well, why would we need to do that? We can just let other people do it. There's already Phil Wickham, and there's already Bethel, and there's already whatever. But for us, it was like, Josh had mentioned I had like 30 songs in the bank. So I've been writing a long time, and it was just like, I don't really know what to do with these. And he was actually like a huge encouragement to me to like, let's just try one, And so that's where we started with Now to Him back in 2019, and it kind of grew from there. But obviously for you, like as the pastor, that's a huge value, is like having worship and music. And even like taking it to the board and like, hey, what do you guys think about us actually investing a good chunk of money into this? Like what is that about for you?
Yeah, I really appreciate gathering together, right, and coming together and worshiping corporately. Like, obviously, you can sing in your car, you can sing at home. It doesn't matter if you have a good voice or not. You can make a joyful noise to the Lord, and so that's all good. But I just enjoy the atmosphere of getting together and worshiping and praising God with one another. And so the idea of like being able to do that, and then, hey, you can extend what the songs that we sing and those things that we do, like, to your home and to where you go. And so it's just kind of fun to be able to take some of those original songs and bring them back home and listen to them on Spotify or wherever, and kind of take that corporate sense and the corporate gathering, and then be able to go home with those songs as well. This is exciting to me.
Yeah, because there is nothing like being in a room full of people who are like worshiping and actually singing. Like, that is one of the most powerful things for me, and that's why I love worship and being able to do this every week. But there is something really special too throughout the week, that you can have this music that connects you to God, and it's like, it's not just a Sunday morning thing. It really can carry through your whole life. And like you said, worship is, your whole life. Like your whole life is worship. But having that musical aspect of it, I think, just connects you to God in a really unique way that is really special. So what about you? Did you have thoughts?
So I know when I first came to New Covenant, the music here was like what attracted me to it to begin with. I've always loved music. I've always sang in other areas of my life, but when I came here and heard the music, like, I was just like, I don't know, it just really affected me. And I know for me, music has a lot of emotion in it, and so
Sure.
That gives me a better connection with God. And I was also thinking too, I know that here at New Covenant that I think almost every song that we sing has the Word of God in it. And so I find, when I hear something that I don't know exactly where the verse is, like, or what I try to look it up, and
Right.
you know, I get to look in the Bible and get a little more connection with the Bible too.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember you when you first came, you like immediately wanted to plug in to the worship team. Or like, how can I sing? And I'm like, just stick around. And you did. And like, it's so awesome to see like how that has changed over time, you know, and how like you've just become such an integral part of the team, I feel. So
I actually asked PMAC. I said, I want to sing with you guys. He's like, talk to Anna. He just passed it off.
Yep. She did though.
It's called passing the buck to the leader.
Yep. No, it was awesome. We're super happy to have all of our worship team members. It's super awesome.
So what's it like, Mary? You said you went from like first time guest to someone who came around to church and stuck around, and then you started singing on the worship team, and then you started leading a song, and now you're like leading a song that you actually wrote, right? How does it feel to lead a song that you actually wrote?
I guess it just kind of seems surreal. Like, the first time I remember when we sang it at Praise Fest. Gosh, that was just like a huge experience, and that wasn't actually what we sing now. We actually changed the song since then, but yeah, it was just like an amazing experience. Like I don't know, like I lost myself in it, and then singing it here on the first Sunday, like I felt a huge connection with it because it's kind of a testimony of where I was in life to where I have come now. And so yeah, it was now it kind of just feels like another song now, but like at first, I still love it. It's an amazing experience, and I just love being part of the worship team and part of this experience.
Yeah.
So how did No More Fear come to you? How did that song emerge?
Well, I was actually inspired because of the first album. Anna had written some songs, and like I just decided, I was like, well, I really want to try and do something like that. I'd never written a song before, and that was actually a friend of mine had given me a women's devotional, and that was when the whole pandemic was going on, and so I had a lot of time at home, and I would be reading my devotion in the morning, and I'm like, wow, that would be really cool in a song. And so I just kind of started writing down like different verses and stuff that I thought I might want to try and throw in something. And I had like so many, I didn't even know where to start, and but yeah, it just kind of developed from there. And I actually have a little recording from when I was at work one day, and you could hear the dishes in the background. I was singing the bridge of the song, and that was what came to me at first, and then it just kind of developed from there. And I prayed about it. I was like, I just really want to write this song, God, please just give me the words. And it kind of just, it happened, and I don't know.
Did you say it came to you one night or something you told me?
It actually did. So the bridge came to me, like I was just singing it at work one day, and then from there, I was praying, and I was laying in bed one night, and I was like, oh, I've got to write that down. And then I started writing it down, and I went back to sleep. I'm like, oh, I got to write it down. And so it just kept happening. Yeah, pretty much in one night, I think I wrote a couple verses, and of course, we've tweaked everything since then, but yeah.
There's always tweaking.
Right, yes.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome. I just love that, how you were like praying for it and really wanting to do that. And I remember the first time, because you don't play any instruments.
Right.
And so you just like put it all in a voice memo and came over to my house, and she just like played me this voice memo, and she's sitting there like trembling.
So nerve-wracking.
And I remember that first time I heard that chorus, so no more fear. I was like, yeah, we're going to do that. So it was so catchy, and like, I think so many people resonate with that, where it's like a personal story for you, but it's like when you sing it and you lead it, like it draws everybody in because it's also their story. Yeah. So I love that. It's so good.
Yeah, just being authentic. I think the couple of lines are, I thought my life was over. At times I wished it was. I mean, that's pretty raw. Vulnerable, raw, and might not think of it as like a worship song, but it's like, no, look at where I was and how far God has brought me. And I think that really does resonate with everybody, that just like, this is who I was, but now because of Jesus, this is who I am. And so, yeah, and COVID time and pandemic and no more fear, it's like, yes, let's sing about no more fear. And that's whether now that we're out of that season or wherever we're headed, it's always a good thing to sing that there's no more fear, So I really appreciate the song.
Yeah, and I'm like encouraged to hear you say that too, because when we first did Share the Hope, like I was just so scared, I think, of like letting people hear my songs. I literally like emailed them to Josh and I was like, they're terrible. You'll probably hate it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I exist. Like,
Every single time. These are going to be horrible, but I want you to listen to them anyway. Oh, by the way, these are really bad, but listen to them anyway. It's like, oh my gosh, okay.
It's always really encouraging. Go listen to some awful music now.
It's like,
You're gonna hate
This ought to be
this.
great.
Hey, you want to put it on a CD? All right, let's do it. Every time.
Every
Bring me
time.
your worst stuff, and let's see what we can do with that.
And honestly, like what I sent you wasn't great. Like,
No, but it wasn't like the worst thing I'd ever heard either. It was somewhere in between. It was like it had
Honest.
some sort of drums and a melody. And
Oh,
it's like,
garage band
and you'd be like, oh
drums.
wait, don't listen to this part though. Wait, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's fine. Just let me
it
hear
was.
it.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm just encouraged like that it's been able to grow since then. I still am afraid every time I let someone hear my song.
And that's a universal human emotion. Fear is something that everybody has in one way or another. And that's why I think No More Fear is a great message to the church. It's a great message to the world. It's a great message to humanity that we don't have to live with this fear that we all have. It's a universal emotion that we don't really have to deal with because Jesus says, set us free. Perfect love casts out fear. And Jesus gave us that perfect love so fear can be gone. Good job. No more fear.
Yeah. That's why it's important too, I think, that like we let our own songs be heard too, because it's like we can be stuck and afraid in like our own, I'm not good enough or whatever it is. And it's like, there really is something about just being vulnerable and like putting it out there and saying like, this is what I have to give. And I was actually reading this book that PMAC lent me earlier this week, or he lent it to me probably a year or two ago, and I'm slowly reading it.
I think it was about 6 years ago. No,
I'm really slow on that one. But it was talking about how if people weren't, there was this old tradition where people would actually bring a light to church and they would hang their light in like their place in the church. And so if somebody wasn't at church, then their light wasn't there. And so the people would say, hey, we missed your light. And I just like thought that was so powerful to think about, not just coming to church, but like in life, like bring all of who you are and show up, like be all there. And don't be afraid, of people thinking your light's not bright enough or not whatever enough. Just bring your light because the world needs your light. Like we all have to show up. Yeah.
So I think we all know that being thankful, that gratitude is a really important part of our Christian experience as well. And so Anna, you wrote a song called With Thanks.
I did.
So what's the story behind that?
Well, With Thanks was the one that I had written a long time ago, honestly. So it's like, honestly, a little hard for me to remember all of where it came from. But basically, it's inspired by Psalm 100, which talks about entering into his courts with praise. And so I just like to take psalms or passages of scripture and just turn it into song. That's how if I don't have like a specific theme inspiration, then I'll just do that and steal the Bible, because we like to sing the Bible here. And so I just take those phrases and turn it into song. And so one of my favorite genres is like funk and gospel. Anything with like a good bass line. That's what I really like, where it's just rhythmic and fun. And so, I don't know, I try to mess around with different styles. And so I really wanted to make a funk song, which I don't know if you could really classify With Thanks as funk, but it's pretty close for what we can do. And so it's got this sort of, syncopated chords and stuff like that. And then when we were able to put brass in it, that was very exciting. And so I feel like Mary was kind of saying earlier, like, No More Fear just feels like one of our songs now. It doesn't necessarily feel like this big, like, oh, this is my song. I feel like every song is like that. Like, the more you do it and the more it develops, the more we collaborate on stuff, it really sort of takes on a life of its own. So that was kind of the idea there. And I think it's just important to start with thankfulness, and thankfulness is really powerful. Like, you look at any science or research, and obviously the Bible, like, it's just huge for turning your whole mindset around. And so that's why I kind of decided to go with that theme.
So for those who may not know, is the Walking Alive album, is it like a funk gospel album? Or what would you categorize as far as like some of the other songs? Is it all that genre, or what kind of genres we have represented in that?
Yeah.
Album.
I feel like this album is just like 5 different genres almost. But we were okay with that. And I think, with Share the Hope, when we released that in 2019, early on, I feel like we just had to decide, like, all right, this is going to be a reflection of New Covenant. And it's like whoever we are, whatever we sing about, the themes that we embrace, the way we worship, like our musicians instead of studio musicians, like we just decided it was going to be a reflection of who we are. And so I kind of carried that mindset through to this, where this project has a lot of different feels. We've got the rock, I don't know what decade of rock, but oh yeah, Logan called it rock in a
Old school in a fresh and fun way. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, old school in a fresh and fun way.
Old school rock in a fresh and fun way.
Yeah. So we've got the rock, we've got the funk, we kind of turned yours a little folky,
Right, yeah.
and then we've got the sort of classic seated on the throne worship, and then Walking Alive is a little bit of the EDM pop.
Yeah, pop type.
Worship pop. So speaking of free indeed, PMAC, what was your inspiration?
Good question. Obviously, freedom. I guess I just feel like I wanted to write something that would encourage people, whether they're new in their faith or whatever, to realize that they've been set free from all the junk of the past and all the stuff that the world tries to hang on us. Jesus promised us freedom. He said, if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed, completely free. And so that was kind of the motivation behind it, was just to write something that would encourage people to walk in their freedom and live in freedom. And I wrote it as, it was the third song that I wrote last summer, and I kind of started as kind of a muted acoustic kind of a thing. And then when we sent the demo to Logan and he came back with that, old school rock in a fresh and fun way, I thought, let's lean into that. Let's have some fun with that. And he mentioned, electric guitar and stuff like that. So we just threw some distortion on it and had some fun with it. And I mean, if you're doing an old school rock song, you got to have the 16-bar lead. So threw that in and did the whole thing, but yeah. That's pretty much the inspiration, I guess. So I want to encourage people to walk in freedom, live in freedom, whether they're newly saved or been around the gospel for a long time and still get hung up on stuff. We just need to know that we're free.
Why did you start writing those 3 songs in the first place last summer?
Yeah, so I've been playing guitar for over 50 years. I've been studying the Bible and preaching for over 40 years. And so those two have always kind of worked together, I guess, in my own mind. I wrote songs way back in the day, in my Before Christ days, when I was playing in rock bands and stuff. So it's not something that's brand new. It's just something I haven't done for a long time. And
But you've never written a worship song?
No, I've never
or a
written
Christian
a worship
song?
song. Not really. Mm-mm. So, just kind of last summer, just thought, I guess I was just playing one day. Sometimes I'll do that. I just grab the guitar and just start playing and worshiping by myself. And this melody came, and that was a different song. But I started just kind of thinking, this could do something. And they just started kind of happening. And I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I didn't really set out to write songs. They just kind of emerged.
When I first heard Free Indeed, Dad sent me a video, but it was just a black screen with the guitar going in the background. I was like, all right, I get behind that.
Do a voice memo.
No voice memo. It was a video with a
Black
black
video.
screen.
This is gonna suck, but will you listen to it?
Yeah, just him playing. So
This is really awful, but listen to it.
yeah, check it out.
Torture your ears for a while.
Find a bass line for this, will you?
That was the point, yeah.
That was
a
the point.
bass line
Yeah,
for this.
yeah, but it was good.
No, I love that. I love that you just started doing it, because we can start things whenever, no matter what we've done before. We could be super young like you
That's right.
and start when we're fresh and young, Or maybe other people, not you, who might be a little older,
Right.
can also start
Yeah.
new things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So do you guys remember how we listened to all the songs? So we had 8 songs originally, plus Wonderful, which we had already recorded. And so we ended up with the 5, but one night we just had most of the worship team. We weren't all there, but a majority of us were able to get together in my office, and we just played all of our really basic demos. And we just I think we rated them.
Yeah.
We put numbers, like how much we liked it or what stood out to us or whatever, and talked about it. And that's always a very vulnerable experience, but it was good. So we ended up with, we had PMAC's 3 songs, and then picked the 1, and then So Am I, that we'll just see. We'll see what happens in the future. But I always like to think that, writing isn't necessarily to get it recorded. And you and I have talked about this a lot too, where it's we're not writing to just put something out there so we can get famous and we can
Right.
get listens and we can, look cool. It's like we really, really want to encourage people with these songs. And I think art is important just for the sake of art. I think writing is important, even for the sake of your own spiritual process. And like you were saying, PMAC, about how you'll just worship in your office or something. It's like nobody's ever going to hear that or listen to that. But it's like how Jesus talked about when you're going to pray, like go into your room and shut the door and pray. You know what I mean? There's so many things in our spiritual walk, and art is included in that, especially if, you do music or some kind of art that can be appreciated. It's important to have it in your own life and not do it to be seen or to get on the stage or to get attention. And I think people on the outside who maybe aren't in on these conversations can maybe misunderstand why we're doing this, and I don't think people think that, but it's possible that people could think that we're trying to just make a name for ourselves, or like we're going to be the next Elevation Worship, or we're going to be the next. It's like, no, we're being us. Like, this is just who we are, and we want to lift our own voice and bring our whole self and our light, to the world.
Right, and I know that even on the first album, there's like stories behind the songs, like that are personal to us, and some people have asked what those are about, and then we get to share our experience of what those songs are about, and I think it's important for other people to hear why we wrote the songs, and what God has done in our life to get us through that, which is part of the writing process. I think sometimes some of it is just putting it out there, getting it down on paper, and then out in the world, and it's actually like a release to sing those songs and to have that connection.
And I feel that way with Seated on the Throne too, because that one I wrote basically for a while. I called it my COVID song. I know that sounds terrible, but it was like 2020 hit, and I was like, I have no control. Like things were changing all the time. We all know this, but even like with church stuff, is like, we're doing it this way, and then we're doing it this way, and then I remember one day I was in your office, and I was like, I can't do it anymore, and I was just like crying, because I was like, I don't know what's happening, and like, how am I supposed to coordinate these services when it's always like panic, like, and I just had to take a second and think about that song and how the psalm, I can't remember, is it 46, that says, be still and know that he is God. Maybe it's not 46, but just to be still and like take deep breaths and, realize that you actually didn't have control in the first place about anything in life, and things are going to happen. It might not be a worldwide pandemic, praise God, every 2 years, but, it might be something that happens in your own life where you're like, oof, yep, I actually thought I had a grasp.
Grip or grasp.
A grip and a grasp.
Grisp.
Put a grasp on that. Editing.
I thought I had that in my hands, and I didn't. It was actually like something where I needed to just open up my hands and say, God, it's in your control. And I've literally, like, that's actually part of my prayer life now, is I'll actually sit there or stand there and with my hands open, and just to tell my own soul with my body language, like, you need to let go and let God, I mean, that's a stereotypical phrase, but, really let God have control, because it's like, you didn't even have it in the first place. And just that idea of perfect love, casting out all fear, and continually just not letting fear rule over us, I think, is what that song is about. And the only way that you can truly dispel fear is to focus on that perfect love and to lift your eyes upward to the God who's seated on the throne, who's over all time. He's eternal. Nothing scares him or worries him. And he's seated on the throne when everybody's running around and there's just chaos all over our world, but you look up and he's seated on the throne and he reigns above it all. And that's my focus. And so that was like where that song came from. There's a lot of kind of different scriptures in there. It's not based on a certain passage, but basically based on that theme of that peace and that rest in God, which is why we put that long minute intro in the beginning. And I love it every time we do that song. People sometimes just look really confused at first, but like now that they know that song, it kind of creates this like settling feeling, I think, in the room, at least for me. Yeah. And I see that, in other people, it's like okay, like I need to breathe and remember that He is God. And
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talk about a time when we all listened to the song, and I think Seated on the Throne was like one of my least favorite songs.
Yeah.
And I told...
that doesn't offend me.
I know it doesn't. That's why I'm telling this story, because I'm the only one up here that doesn't write songs. And
So far.
And so far it is. But just you guys write these songs, and whether it's like something you've come out of, or whether it's like something you've been reading in the Bible, or some expression, or whatever it may be, you guys kind of have that vision. Like it came to there's dishes in the background, or there's this going on, and you have some vision. And so when I was asking Anna, I'm like, I don't, because I heard the rough demo, and it was one of those times. It's like,
It was like me and piano, and it was like,
it's okay, and but she had like some vision for it and behind it, and it's fun. It's fun for me to hear how the songs start out, or where they begin, and then kind of where they end up. And Seated on the Throne, like when we play it or when I listen to it, like there's times it almost like brings me to tears. I mean, it's just a very it's much different. It's the only one really on the whole album that's more chill and slower, and everything else kind of has this rock, let's clap, let's get some horns in there, let's celebrate. And this one it's really good. And I know we've had like guest speakers here and other people, and they're like, man, what is that song? And it's like, it'll be out on our album, and it just has it has that feel that it's like, man, this is just so worshipful, and I'm gonna let it go and peace, like be still, like this is all out of my control. And so it's fun for me as someone who doesn't write music to see where the process starts, and then to see something finish that it's like, oh man, I'm so glad everybody else voted this one high because I know I didn't vote it high, and it's like, I'm so glad we're doing it, because I'd have been bummed out if it was left off.
If
so
you had known.
I know.
It was my favorite, by the way.
Yeah, I think it was like the ladies'
It was kind
favorite.
of the females.
It
right?
was, but now that it's done, it's like, all right. And I even asked her.
Get
She's
around
like,
that.
she's like, well, here's the vision, and here's like 7 songs you can listen to. It's kind of like that, and I'm like, all right, I can wrap my head around it.
I think a lot of times too, when you get other people involved with a song, there's a natural evolution that takes place with the songs as they kind of develop. And I mean, you wrote that song that way,
Right.
but over time,
Yeah.
it develops into something a little different than how they start a lot of times too.
For sure. Which is,
And that you
super
get
fun.
influence from other people on the team or from the producer or whatever, and it helps
Right.
with that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And every song is like that on this album. There was stuff that was added in the studio. But I feel like this project was really fun because 2019, our first album, was like, nobody knows what we're doing, So it was all just step by step, trying to make decisions and hope for the best. And I feel like this time around, it wasn't that we were suddenly all incredible songwriters and experienced, but it was like everybody was willing to risk their idea being heard a little bit more. And we had those kind of songwriting meetings where whoever was available would just come, and we would listen to this song and this song or whatever. And here's a melody idea. I remember like the chord progression for Free Indeed was during the guitar solo was like Peggy's idea. And the first time I heard that, I was like, that's probably not what I would have done, but we kept doing it and working it, and it works. Like, I really love how it switches up right there, because it feels like freedom to me. Like, when I hear that drop, I'm like, yeah, that's right. But like at the time, it's like, oh, that's just somebody on a keyboard in my office. You don't get the full vision. And so I think that's just super fun, because I feel like we were really collaborating a lot more this time around. What were some ideas you heard that in those meetings?
I was just saying, with that one, with Free Indeed, I had no vision for that to be in the chorus, And then the first time I heard it, I thought, I'm not sure about that. Then I heard it some more. It's like, what? That really adds a lot. It just takes time to see those things change. But yeah, I think a lot of them, as we looked at them, they add thoughts about maybe where verses could go or that kind of thing. It's it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, when we met for Free Indeed, I remember it was PMAC and the rest women.
Yeah.
And we were really trying to get some frolicking in there, but PMAC was not having the frolicking.
The question Anna asked, so what do you think of when you think of freedom? And somebody said, well, I think of frolicking through the forest. I said, look, there's going to be no frolicking on this song.
Frolicking. You're going to put a guitar solo in this song, like a man.
I mean, no frolicking in this song.
But I feel like every song. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the first album, like, I was really scared to like even try to put any ideas out there. I was, I just felt like that's gonna sound really stupid. I don't have any good ideas. And this time, I just felt like, I don't know, like, I guess just felt more comfortable being in the worship team a little longer. And I think other people felt the same way. There was a lot of people throwing stuff out there. I know at the end of No More Fear, I didn't know exactly how we were going to end it. We were singing it one day at worship practice, and John said something, well, why don't we go back in with the verse or the chorus again? And like that was not the original plan, but like it worked,
Yeah,
and
it
so
and it feels so good at the end.
it does. Yeah.
So yeah, there really was just ideas people throw out there. Emily had a lot of different keys ideas, and Peggy's written, some of her own songs and stuff too. And so it's just fun to be able to like all come in together and work on it, and different bass ideas. And then you guys, I don't know if you worked on the Free Indeed bass line together, or if you came up with that, but
Nope.
Anyway.
So we've decided to name this project Walking Alive, and that is one of the songs that will be released on June 3rd. And so, Anna, why don't you tell us a little bit about Walking Alive, the song?
The song. Well, I wrote it based on the bridge. I had been sitting on this phrase in the bridge for like 3 years or something ridiculous, where it talks about, I actually still changed the words, but it says, you gave your life to put an end to shame, my fear and pain, you died to drive it away. And originally those words were, Jesus, you died to put an end to shame, to my fears and burdens, guilt and all pain. And so basically the same, but the idea was that Jesus died to get rid of shame. And like, I keep coming back to shame, I keep letting myself get stuck in this like shameful or fearful place where it's like, whether it's about my own worth or it's just about like, if I sin, then he won't forgive me, or like, we can just get ourselves so stuck, which is why I think Free Indeed is so important, to sing about that as well. But it was just this idea like, no, Jesus died to set me free from this. And if I like don't walk in freedom from that, then I'm saying like, his death doesn't matter. Like, it's just important that we actually receive that freedom and walk in it. And so that was really where I started. And I don't write a lot of fast songs. I'm kind of like the slow, like devotional. That's what what mostly comes out of me naturally. And so it was originally a slow song, actually. And then over time, I was like,
Crawling Alive.
it was not even called, it wasn't called anything for a long time. It was like the Jesus died to kill shame song. But slowly I was like, I'm going to raise this BPM like double. And it just became this actually very fast, happy song, because really it is supposed to be happy, So I took those themes of the resurrection of Jesus and how he came to die and to set us free, to live the life that we failed each time, all those themes. And because, the Bible talks about because he's alive, then we know that we too will live and we can have that resurrection power in us, And so that was really the inspiration behind that. I wanted to communicate that he's walking alive, and so we're walking alive. It's both, but it's because of what he did on the cross and because he's resurrected, and we can know that he's alive. And so that's really like the entire premise of our faith, So it's just taking the whole reason that we're free, the reason that we can know the God who's seated on the throne, the reason that we have no more fear, the reason we enter in with thanks. It's because he's alive and because he's made us alive. And that is our hope every day. And so that was where that song came from. And as I was still writing it, I felt like, I feel like this should be a fast song because it makes you feel that walking alive sort of feeling. And so honestly, that was the one that was like the least finished for me when we were rating the songs and listening to them. And I remember I had like haze in there and all sorts of stuff. Not when you heard it, but like the week before I let everyone else hear it, there was like a ticka, hey, there's life on the other side.
Whoa!
Oh. It was not great. But anyway, it was the least finished of all the songs. And so I'm very happy with how it turned out, but praise God there are not hays in that one.
So why are there woes? So
Oh, yeah,
there's
we
no
did put some
There
woes
were
in
no
there.
haze.
there's no haze
Have something.
You gotta have one.
because it's
Woes.
really catchy. It's Walking Alive is really catchy.
Right.
So we went not with the haze, but you went with the woes. So
Correct.
Is there is it just like filler? Or is that like worship? What are woes about?
Yeah, it was on purpose, and we wanted, that instrumental time that was kind of the lift, and like you can kind of jump or dance or like move a little bit during that part. But I'm about to sound probably a little bit overly artsy, but but honestly, when I hear those woes, when I hear PMAC sing it, it just reminds me of like Jesus walking out of the grave. I don't know if you've ever like listened to it that way, but I get this like mental picture in my head where it's like, whoa, like I'm coming out. I don't know. That's just what happens in my brain. I didn't necessarily write it that way on purpose, but it was just this melody that worked, and the I just really liked that, and then I decided, hey, actually this would be, these three notes would be a good whoa, and so walked into PMAC's office one day with my laptop.
Yeah, I said, listen to this and put some woes in here.
Yep. I was like, can you just sing whoa? And he's like, okay, yeah. And we worked it out, and he just sang it right into my laptop speakers.
Top of my lungs.
Everybody else in the
She's like,
building.
I need it high and kind of loud. And sure, let's do that.
And remind me, didn't that actual recording make the cut?
yeah.
Like it's in the song,
That
right?
is the actual recording, final
At the very
cut.
beginning of
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Made the final cut. So there you go.
On my laptop speakers. It's like there's like audio waves that you see that are like loud, soft, loud. It's like songs go up and down. That's like a solid rectangle. Just
We call it the green rectangle when
right.
we were in the studio. Yeah, it was like,
Yeah, so she says, give this to me good, loud, and strong, and a little higher in your range. And so I did a few of those, and I come out, and Mel comes out of her office, and she said, are you done blowing now? I said, yep, we're all done. That's the
are you
end of it.
okay?
right. Yep.
There's a lot of yelling.
That's right. So for me, I mean, Josh can comment on this too, but that was kind of why we named the album Walking Alive. What did you think? Because we talked about a lot of different, we're like, should we name it one of the songs or should we make its own title? Like Share the Hope was like just a phrase. Right. So.
Yeah, I think Walking Alive kind of encapsulates, like the genre on the 5 songs might be quite diverse, but the message behind them, honestly, are really tied together well. Right. Just in that idea of, dead to sin and alive to God, or, I was fearful, but now I'm not, or I was in this type of situation, but God has rescued me and set me free. And this idea that like I was dead, but now I'm alive. And that really does, when you look at the lyrics, when you sing through those songs, there's a cohesiveness, I feel like, in that instead of pulling out a phrase, it was like, man, Walking Alive. And it turned out to be this fun song, and we get good poppy cover art from it, and, people walking. And I think it's a lot of fun, and it's just enjoyable and fun, and something that we can look at and be like, yeah, Walking Alive. And then it does. I feel like it ties in those songs honestly really well, even better than I had realized. Even after we kind of talked through it and did it, and then you're reading and singing these songs some more. It's like, man, these really flow well,
Right.
And so I think that was a lot of the reason that we ended up doing it.
Yep.
For sure.
If you think about it, Walking Alive is about resurrection. And it's because of the resurrection that any of the stuff that we sing about or any of the stuff that we are is true.
Right.
It's because of Jesus' resurrection. So it's fitting.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We appreciate you watching and just being a part of this conversation, and we hope that you check out Walking Alive, the album. Thanks for listening.